I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week discussing a streaming favorite. In this particular episode, we are going to be discussing the penultimate episode of what I believe will be the final season of Euphoria. Very eventful, but can't wait to get your opinion on this, Darren. Joining me for this conversation, as usual, is Darren. How are you doing, Darren?
Yeah, pretty good, Victor. Yep, ticking along. It's getting colder, but keeping occupied with heaps of good TV and film.
Yeah, here in the United States, the cutoff for being eligible for the Emmy Awards is end of May. So, of course, a bunch of films and series, I should say, films as well, actually, because of the cutoff for TV movies, but primarily series, are all trying to make the deadline. So if you're wondering, like, why are all these shows wrapping up this week? Euphoria will be wrapping up before or on the 29th specifically. Half Man will be wrapping up this week as well. Oh, and by the way, you may have noticed there's a double episode of Widow's Bay. I didn't even realize this, but there's a minimum number. If you are an anthology or a miniseries, you have to be completely run by the end of May. I actually just looked this up out of curiosity. But to qualify, if you are a returning year-to-year series or comedy or drama or any other series in general, you need to have at least 6 episodes out. You don't have to complete the run, but at least 6 episodes must have aired before May 29th. So you may see like shows doubling up on episodes, for example. Although I'm not sure if that is, my theory is correct on Widow's Bay, which I do think will be in conversation for at least some of the awards this year, because this current episode that's coming up this week would have been a 6th, but they decided to drop 2 episodes. We're getting a 6th and 7th episode this very week. And we'll be covering it here on the podcast. Specifically to that point of bringing it up here. I assume you're caught up, Darren?
Yes, caught up. Yeah. I really liked the last episode, even though it was a bit different to previous episodes. I like this one. I called it Common Side Effects mixed with Pizza Movie, which we have been discussing on the pod. Yeah, really funny the way they show him tripping out, but they don't actually show trippy visuals, which everybody shows trippy visuals and shows what they're seeing when they're on the effect of some drug. But this show does things differently, and you just see his face trapped on this trip that he can't get off.
I assume, and I do hope that they do this, it would be a real missed opportunity if they don't, but I'm pretty certain we will see all the missing scenes in another episode, and I cannot wait to see that. Like, you hear everybody reacting like, please stop yelling at me, and like reacting to whatever he was doing in that fugue state he was in. I can't wait to see that from someone else's perspective in a later episode, I presume.
That sounds amazing. And I love your observation that the priest was probably on that drug when he ran into those kids and just said hello.
Yes, right.
And ran off.
Oh, and then later he basically told him that the apocalypse was coming. So, this is probably maybe 2 different phases in along that trip.
Oh, so funny. Yeah. I love this show so much. It's must-watch TV as soon as it comes out. And so we got a double episode this week. So, yeah, that's super exciting.
And this might be why they did it, by the way, not only to make the cutoff for the Emmys, although I think that they would have made it anyway, but it's 2 very different. How every episode, basically, the show has been different. So, Darren, you may perk up your ears for this. The next episode is called Our History, and it takes place in the past, and it's shot in black and white and directed by Ty West. So it's kind of like The Witch, but for this island. although The Witch wasn't shot in black and white, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's trying to be rustic feeling in its way. And then the subsequent episode picks up directly from where we left off last week, which, by the way, last week's episode for me, may be the worst episode, which is saying a lot considering how good this was. But I have to say that the final moments, I don't know if anybody knows this, but the Apple AirPods, which is what I listen to the shows on at night when the family's getting ready for bed. I'm just sitting there with my AirPods in, ignoring everybody else with the noise canceling on. So I can't hear all the yelling about picking out outfits for the next day and such. But you have on the Apple TV app, you have a setting where you can use this kind of atmosphere sound from using the AirPods. And I usually turn it on when I'm watching, especially when I'm watching a show like this, Widow's Bay, which has, 3D sound basically. And I had this on and was not expecting the final moments of last week's episode. Darren, like ice cubes, like in a cartoon, like ice cubes from the base of my neck all the way down my spine when the sound design at the end of that episode. I was like, whoa, that's that. I wasn't expecting that. Looked very, very well done. The sound design pretty amazing in that at the end of the episode.
That's so good. That's awesome when things hit you like that. And yeah, you realize things are actually being thought about all along the production line of making a piece of art. That's really cool.
Yeah, excellent production across the board for this really entertaining show. And of course, everybody, once again, one more reminder that we'll be covering it on Wednesday. And my sister will be joining for that conversation, by the way. So.
Oh, fantastic. So Ty West, so he did that Pearl movie, which I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And he's done another couple of genre / horror type films. So yeah, interesting dude that doesn't always hit for me, but yeah. Same. Black and white episode, history of the island. Bring it on. I'd love to know more history about this island and where these things are coming from.
Yeah, he doesn't always hit for me either with a lot of the films he's made, although I love Pearl, which is also a period piece, of course. But he's done a lot of TV directing and pretty strong episodes of a lot of horror anthologies and such. So he's usually a highlight in most of the things he directs for TV. So definitely looking forward to that.
Great.
A couple other things on the Patreon was where multiple people on the Patreon are saying, he keeps saying his sister's going to come on again. When's she going to come on? Well, unless she bails on me yet again, she will be my co-host for the recap of that double episode recap of Widow's Bay. So stay tuned for that, everybody. And speaking of the Patreon, once again, just a pitch for the Patreon. It's out there. Feel free to join. It is free for everybody. I was going to send out a quip. There's these like quips, just like 2-minute videos you can send out. It's like a way to like communicate with other creators and people who follow them, and also to your own followers. I haven't done any of this yet, but I was planning to do this. So I'm just going to do it here, which is to say that I just wanted to let everybody know on the Patreon. So I wanted to reach out to you folks and just say that, like, you guys are really cool. Like the patrons on this podcast. I have most of the people who are following me there. I have emailed most of you. The people who are on there basically are the people who have also reached out to me via email for the most part across the board, and have had multiple interactions. But I just want to say that when I started the podcast, I was like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and follow and I don't want to like chase an audience and do like a true crime podcast or whatever. I just want to kind of talk about the things I want to talk about. I don't want to make it just like memes and try to chase that kind of quick fix. I wanted to like actually have substantial conversations about whatever I'm watching. And that's exactly the audience that has turned up. And anyway, I think the people who follow on Patreon, and all of you, the listeners, not just the ones who are on there, but I think in general, anyone I've interacted with, you guys are pretty awesome. I just wanted to let you guys know, including you, Darren, of course, including you.
Oh, thanks, Victor. Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to be a bit more engaged in the Patreon. So that's one of my goals for the next few weeks is to hop on there a bit more often. But that's great. That's so encouraging that you think of your listeners as a community. I mean, I've followed a couple of different podcasts, and the best ones are the ones where you feel part of the gang and part of the team moving forward, and you shape the future of the show. I think it's just so cool.
And everybody has such interesting backgrounds and biographies, but they all have the kind of the same interests like I do, like the one to be more than a hobbyist and trying to like navigate all this media. And yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I had hoped for in the audience itself. Anyway, you guys are all pretty awesome. Just let you know. Some news this week, by the way, Darren, just to pivot away from that Spider-Noir is coming out in black and white and in color on Amazon Prime. Nicolas Cage has been doing a lot of press this week, giving some really interesting interviews that I've been curious to see this. I'm not sure it's going to be a home run. The reviews have been positive for it, by the way, but it is available just out of curiosity. Anybody who's interested in this, check it out. By the way, it was intended to be done in black and white. Amazon, after much pressuring from Nicolas Cage himself, who's very passionate about this project, agreed to do the black and white and the color. So when you go turn it on, you can actually toggle back and forth. So just to be sure, if you're watching it in color, but you wanted to see it in black and white, I'm not sure how it's going to be. Just a toggle, you could turn it on and off with in the menu settings, or whether it'll have two different versions, black and white and color. But just be clear that, if you start watching it in color and you're like, oh, is it going to turn into black and white? No, there's like two separate versions of the show, black and white and color. But it was shot, like basically the lighting, all the designs were designed for the black and white version. So if you get the option, if that doesn't bother you, do check it out in black and white. I'll definitely be checking it out.
That's a fun gimmick.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very cool idea. And I think it's smart for Amazon. Some people will not watch a black and white show. So make a color version of it fine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fine. I looked for it on Prime last night and I couldn't find it. So I assume it's coming out very soon. But yeah, love me some Nicolas Cage.
It's very weird, by the way. You were looking for it last night because it's on MGM Plus. It is on MGM Plus, which is owned by Amazon, a separate network. So if you have MGM Plus, which I don't even know anyone who does, then you would have been able to watch it last night. A single episode is going every week to week on MGM Plus. However, on Amazon Prime, on Wednesday, I believe, the middle of this week, the entire thing is dropping as a binge, which seems like such a self-defeating thing. If you're trying to attract people to go to MGM Plus, and you presumably most of them already have Amazon Prime, then you're going to torpedo your own plans, because people are just going to watch the available binge on Prime. They're not going to get an MGM Plus subscription, but to wait weekly for this show. But whatever. Very strange release pattern, but it'll be on Prime if you guys are looking for it. If you have MGM Plus by chance, it's already, or I should say, the first episode at least is available.
Well, that's completely confusing, and also because it's Marvel, I expect it to be on Disney Plus. So that's where I immediately go looking for it. So yeah, weird.
The Spider World is in Sony, under Sony's umbrella, which also is not Amazon, but I don't know. It's too confusing to understand. However it worked out, that's how it worked out. But it is a Marvel product. Darren, you might be interested in this. A little bit of news. Mobland Season 2 has wrapped for 2 months ago, so it should be coming out soon. But apparently Tom Hardy was such a nightmare that they are now going to, it's been greenlit for Season 3, but they're trying to figure out how to get rid of Tom Hardy for Season 3 of the show. Like, how do they write the star of the show off of the show? That's the plan for Season 3. And they're being public about this, which means that this is like, they're not like, oh, behind the scenes, maybe they'll kill him off in the middle of the season. They're openly being like, get ready, everybody. He's not going to be in Season 3.
But he survived Season 2. Season 2,
I presume, unless they shoot something, kill him off screen or something, do like Yellowstone, where they, retroactively kill the character.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand why you would watch that show without Tom Hardy in it. The mind boggles. Yeah. Agreed.
But I figured, since we had a lot of people listen to our coverage of Mobland, so if you guys are waiting for it, we probably will discuss it at least. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we won't feel Tom Hardy's frustration with whatever it was with that show on screen. But we will definitely sample at the beginning of Season 2, whenever it premieres, which I assume will probably be towards the end of summer.
Yeah, I am interested, because we had a heap of listeners watching that show, even though we kind of hate watched it. And I think
right.
I don't know if we were harsh on it, but I just don't think it really hit for us as well as it should have. But I'm still interested to check out the second season and see what happens.
Just want to hear that theme song again, although I can listen to it anytime I want on Spotify.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, the next thing I want to mention is that you had seen Obsession. And I definitely want to, so anybody who's seen Obsession, by the way, I want to have a spoiler-filled conversation about Obsession. I'm going to put it in this episode. I'm going to have a conversation with Darren. Check the show notes to jump to the spoiler section of the conversation. But before then, I wanted to give you, Darren, a chance to speak on your opinion of it, anything spoiler free you want to mention before we save the rest of the conversation for spoilers, because there's so many things I want to talk about that movie, which I really has haunted me, honestly, after seeing it. And I'm really, the more I think about it, the more impressed I am with it. I got from your text to me that you were a little more on the fence about it. So I can't wait to hear your conversation about it. Celia, my sister, has seen it and she loved it. She was like literally just texting me, love it, just like yesterday, as she is wont to do. She like very much becomes obsessed in her own way with things it likes. And maybe I probably won't love it as much as she does. So maybe we'll save some of that conversation for my conversation with her later the week. But before we get to that, I wanted to actually mention this amazing thing that happened that has never happened before, or extremely rarely, not in many, many years. I think The Ring is the last time this happened 25 years ago, which is where a movie made more money in its second week, substantially more money in week 2 versus week 1. And I already texted this to you, Darren, earlier in the weekend. I was predicting that this was going to happen. Now the official numbers are in. It was even bigger than expected, by the way. This movie was tracking to open. This is just to speak to the word of mouth phenomena that only horror films seem to be able to get this kind of momentum. If you have a drama that has really good word of mouth or is an award contender, it might like slowly decline over months, but you don't really see like a spike upwards in box office. And the movie was tracking for about an $8 or $9 million opening weekend. After its opening day, they were saying, oh, this is going to make $13 to $15 million. By the time the weekend ended, it made $17 million. Now, traditionally, if a movie makes $17 million on the weekend, during the rest of the week, it'll make another $5 or $6 million. The film made another $14 million during the week, like almost 3 times as much as expected. So it had made about $30 million in its opening week. And then Darren, this past weekend, the one that's just ending, it made an additional $30 million. So it doubled its box office. In the second weekend, it almost doubled its box office from week 1 to week 2. So the word of mouth here in the United States, at least, it seems to be doing well overseas, but nowhere near the kind of amazing box office catching fire here in the US that it seems to be doing. The word of mouth is so viral that it's the very rare feat, especially in this day and age, of driving people to the theaters. But doubling nearly from week 1 to week 2 is like pretty much unheard of. So curious to get your take on it, and also maybe your speculation on why. I don't think in Australia this is taking off the way it is here in the US. So just curious to think if you have any speculation on why it's so viral here.
Yeah, wow. All for a movie that reportedly cost
$700,000. Yes, a very important point to bring up as well. It'd be amazing.
Insane. Well, fantastic. That's awesome. Congratulations to everybody involved. I didn't love the film, but I thought it was very good and very exciting, and it has stuck with me for sure. Yep. But I think the dings that I have on it, I think I just wanted it to push more into some themes that it just waved at. Mm-hmm. But yeah, thrilling film, a little repetitive. You could see the low budget. So the low budgetness definitely contributed to its sense of horror and the kind of grainy. It was square format on the screen, and there was not a lot of flashy camera moves, but when they occurred, they were effective. It was very high contrast cinematography, so faces and people will get lost in shadows. I think it was extremely effective. There was just a lot of themes that they touched on, which was so exciting that I wanted them to go deeper into. And we can go into that in the spoiler-filled review because there's so much I want to say about to spoil the film. But yeah, super exciting. I had trouble with the lead actor, the character Bear at the start, but I think he got better as it went along. And the title Obsession, it's not about the girl being obsessed with him. It's about him being obsessed with her, which I thought was really interesting. And I wanted to see more of this danger of being friend-zoned, but still carrying a torch for this person that's really close in your life. It can be so damaging, which I found super interesting. But yeah, really effective film. Very disturbing. It took me a while to kind of snap out of it. Maybe because it was too long. And it was, like I said, a little bit repetitive in the scenes, a lot of just back and forth, steady shots and characters just kind of talking back and forth, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went on a little bit for me. And I think there was other things like the sex scene.
Yes.
Shocking.
Yes.
But only for a second they showed that. And I wanted to see more. What happened there? How did he actually convince himself that this was a good idea?
Yeah.
Really disturbing in parts where maybe you could see that the filmmaker needs a bit maturity to kind of focus on exactly what he wants to focus on to bring forward. Maybe I'm just talking about a movie that I wanted it to be rather than what it was. But yeah, still super worthwhile to watch, and I'm interested to see it when it gets to streaming. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth a second watch for sure. And when I get to the spoiler section, I'm going to be extremely complimentary about the film. I was actually taking some notes about exactly how I think that a lot of the arguments you made, in general, I agree, by the way, but a lot of the arguments I think are true in the structural problems the film has and some of the things that it doesn't dig into. But I actually think that it makes the film more thematically rich, because honestly, the reason I think it stuck with me, and I'm not sure if Curry Barker is actually so psychologically adept that he structured the film this way, or if he just kind of intuited what the film needed, because I think those things that you're calling out that aren't fully fleshed out actually make the film stick with me more. It has stuck with me more than I think if it had been more complete in its statement. I think it would have been more comfortable. And the film made me very uncomfortable after, like processing it made me very uncomfortable. And part of that is because of being in the perspective of someone who you're probably not supposed to be empathetic to. But I think all of that is intentional, which makes me think that the film is like a really interesting text to examine. So I'll save all that for the spoilers, but in general, I would say that, I only gave the film 3.5 stars only. That's a good review for me, by the way, but not an excellent review, because I agree with what you said. This is, I kind of touched on this when I reviewed it briefly last week. But for me, it was like every one of those set pieces, and this comes from the fact that he is mostly someone who does skits on YouTube, by the way, right? I think this is where it comes from. Every one of those set pieces are unique, one versus the other, and they're all very good, but they are repetitive. Like there's no momentum to them. It's just like, and then this happens, and then this happens. And each one of them individually is either very funny, like when the door is taped up and stuff, very funny sequence, by the way, right? So it's hard to know like which one of these would I cut, but I would be more brutal and be like, I am going to cut 2 or 3 of these to make this thing a little tighter, right? So I do think that there's something, like you said, there's some maturity there, and there's not like having too much repetitive, then, rinse, repeat from moment to moment. It kind of loses its momentum. It's a little too long for what it is. But like I said, I mean, these are nitpicks, because I think this guy's really sharp. Technically, this is really well made. And I love these, just some things, like the way he allows someone to be like, because maybe he's not like film school trained, he allows someone to be like completely in shadow with just a little bit of light in their eyes. It's so creepy. And it's just something I haven't seen before. Some of the sound design choices and just the way the actors move, very uncanny, like really creepy as hell. I was really in the theater. This is a really scary film.
Cool. Yeah. One thing I didn't mention is how funny it is.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I felt like it could lean into the comedy more in some areas. I needed to laugh. I wanted to laugh to try to kind of get out of this,
I don't think
this feeling.
I think that's well balanced, to be honest, because the biggest laughs come in like the most brutal moments in the film. And I think he's, again, intuiting this, I feel, my opinion at least, that he, by not letting the comedy get too comedic, he doesn't allow us to to make it into a straight on horror comedy so that we can kind of take that deep breath. It makes it more uncomfortable, right? And I think that's more effective as a horror film. Maybe not as a comedy, but as a horror film. And some of the comedy is excellent. And like the fact that he pulls off some of these jokes in and of themselves, considering how brutal some of the content is kind of amazing in and of itself.
Oh my God. I could not stop laughing when Bear goes to his girlfriend that he's going out for a boys' night tonight. and she's not invited, and just the screams and the horror. I feel like I've heard that many times before when I've suggested that to Mom.
Oh my God, that's what I was going to say. I have, I touched on this briefly last week too. Was in a relationship that like this was extremely triggering for me because that wasn't like even that funny because I'm like, I have been in exactly that situation. Like it's nearly identical. So I'm not sure. There was no demonic possession, but other than that, everything else was pretty much note for note. Oh my God. And the reaction, like kiss the person to your left. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, so
there's some great scenes. There's some really fun scenes. And like you say, they don't build, they could be almost in any order.
Yes, exactly.
But it still doesn't take them away from being really good scenes.
Yeah, I mean, that's my general critique, is that so much of the film could be rearranged and would have almost no difference in impact, which is a problem, right? I would have cut out, you have to kill your darlings, as they say. I would have cut out maybe my favorite gags to make it, give them that momentum. And then you give them like the director's cut with all the other funny stuff in there. But like I said, these are minor quibbles. This movie is actually really impressive for someone who's only like in their 20s, who's barely ever made anything of this length before. It's an incredible achievement, I think. And this kid, I think, has the juice for sure.
Yeah, wicked, insane.
And of course, this is like an internet. One more thing to bring up is, probably going to be a huge story next week, is that the Backrooms is tracking to open massively. Speaking of internet culture, and a very young creator who shot this movie, he's 20 now, shot this movie when he was 19 years old, and the tracking to open like in the 30 to 40 million range. So 2 massive horror films practically back to back. They also had Passenger this week, by the way. One more thing to bring up. I saw Passenger, and it is from a pretty talented horror director, by the way. This movie is awful. Truly awful. Do not go see it.
I just read a really good review of it.
Has that?
I just read a very positive review of Passenger.
Yeah, shocked by that, by the way, that there would be a very positive review of it. If you've seen the trailer, part of the reason I saw it was because I thought the trailer was very effective. And if you've seen the trailer, that is all footage from the first few minutes of the episode of the movie, first few minutes. And then it like resets with whole different characters, and it's not that movie at all. And I'm just like, what's happening? And then it basically becomes like a haunted house on wheels movie. That it's like these people, this couple that are like on a, going to be these, what do they call these people who live in RVs and travel the country, these nomads. Anyway, but basically their RV is haunted. That's basically what it turns into. And I'm just like, wow, like this is not at all the movie I signed up for, not at all the movie that I saw in the trailer, except for the first few minutes of this one. And just like, yeah, just unbelievably boring. Like unbelievably boring all throughout. So the exact opposite of an obsession, and not worth discussing at all.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for streaming for that one, maybe.
Yeah, I would recommend.
I did notice that director, his last movie was The Voyage of the Demeter, which I thought was quite an interesting spin on a Dracula tale. Yep. Maybe not 100% full on fantastic, but I thought it was decently watchable. So yeah.
All right, let's transition away from horror topics. Oh, you know what? Before we transition fully away from horror topics, I have a question to ask you about parenting. So I've been letting my daughter watch Widow's Bay, and it's got an MA rating. She's only 11 years old, and nothing in it other than language, nothing in it has been like that inappropriate. I'm more afraid that she's going to get creeped out by this stuff, which doesn't seem to be. And my question to you is, how do you decide what you let your kids watch or not? Because here's the thing. I was just talking to my wife about this, which is that there's so many things I watched, like read Stephen King novels and such, when I was about her age or a little bit older. And I probably shouldn't have been reading that stuff. Like when you think about the novels themselves, they're full of like really inappropriate content, even more so than the movies are. And I was reading that stuff. And it also made me think I was listening to another podcast where all these famous people were talking about like the first films they watched that got them into movies. And they're like, I was 12 years old and I saw Clockwork Orange. I was 10 years old and I saw The Exorcist. And they're having these conversations being like, my parents didn't know what I was in for. I watched it behind their backs. So on the one hand, I'm like, I probably shouldn't be letting her watch some of this stuff I let her watch. But then I think to myself, isn't that how I got into these things? So maybe, that's just up to the person. Anyway, you've been through this. You have older kids, plus you have a child about the same age as my daughter. So how do you decide?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because they're constantly pushing you to watch things outside their age group. I remember it was a badge of honor when I was a kid to watch these films that you're not supposed to watch. I think I had to petition my parents to watch Predator when I was maybe 10 years old. I thought it was just the best thing ever. I'd love my 10-year-old to watch Widow's Bay. I didn't realize it's MA. It doesn't feel like that, but it feels like something that's so well made that will actually give her the creeps.
Right.
But it's in short little bites, which is doable, and it's also extremely well made. I would have no problem. I haven't heard the swearing. That hasn't really come through for me, but they hear swearing. They hear worse in the schoolyard, even at 10 years old, I'm sure. Yeah, it's difficult. We've got a parent-teacher day coming up, so I'm at home with the kid for most of the day, and I know she's going to want to watch something that's going to push the boundaries. Anything that has that MA symbol on it, she's like, well, can I watch this? Can I watch this? What age can I watch this? And I'm just like, I think Kill Bill she wants to watch. I'm just like, there's no way you're going to watch Kill Bill. There's no way.
No way.
But other things, I'm not sure if I think maybe I've watched an MA with her before, and it was fine, completely fine. Because I'm there, she likes to engage with films by talking throughout, which is fine if it's a film that I've seen before. And I love the conversations because she brings up things that I would never think of. And I love explaining everything to her. I've given her a little bit of horror, a few bites here and there. So she understands about filmmaking techniques and sound and makeup. And the blood is just corn syrup. She understands all that, which is kind of cool. And also these days, these kids are really adept at picking what's AI and what's not.
Right.
And so I feel like their like acuity in doing that is better than us, and they can pick it quicker than us, which is another kind of film education that you can see the strings behind the puppets if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's a week to week proposition. It's a movie to movie proposition. But yeah, I'd love to watch things with her that maybe pushes her boundaries a little bit. Yeah. But I've got it wrong in the past, and I'll probably get it wrong in the future.
Yeah, part of the reason, like you were saying, part of it is like, I would never let her watch like a movie like Obsession, by the way, because she couldn't even understand where the horror is originating in that, to be honest. But the thing that's interesting about Widow's Bay is that it actually does creep. The only thing that's really creeped her out, by the way, is the clown. Like every time there's another episode, I'm like, I don't know if you should watch this scene, let me know if you get scared. And she's like, is the clown back? I'm like, no, the clown has not come back at all. But it's the only thing she thinks about. The clown is scary. So I guess that's the thing but to your broader point, like she watched Stranger Things and that didn't really freak her out. But I think that, they see all the people on their social media feeds or their YouTube feeds, and they like know who these people are, and they know they see all the behind the scenes videos and such. But it's also that there is something very plastic about that. It's not only the CGI, it's also like the makeup effects are very over the top, which of course is kind of charming when you see the reference back to the 80s. But there is something like very like grounded about that, which is part of the creepiness of Widow's Bay. There's something very like not CGI or overtly artificial about it, right? They're putting it in a very like kind of grounded reality, which makes the horror and work more. But yeah, it doesn't seem, that the violence is not that over the top. I'm actually surprised a little bit, other than, of course, that there is a lot of swearing. There's a lot of, people yelling at each other and just screaming up the F word at each other, or calling each other terrible names out of frustration or anger, or, just because they're drunk. Like, what's his name? Like the Wick character is just like screaming up epithets every minute when he's drunk. Although he's been drunk in a couple episodes now. But I think other than the language, there's been nothing that was that extreme, I would assume. So anyway. It may be able to get worse. That's my concern, is that maybe like all these things, like the boogeyman may very well. I mean, I think the boogeyman is going to scare her if it becomes a bigger part of the series. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see a boogeyman emerge again. And that's probably going to be where we pull the plug on the show, possibly. So we'll see.
And she's hooked. She wants to keep watching.
I thought she'd forgotten about it. And then like in the middle of the week, she was like, can we watch the most recent episode of Widow's Bay? I'm like, oh, I guess so.
That's
we'll
cool.
see if she taps out. We'll see.
Yeah, one fail I had, we watched Aliens a couple of years ago. And I mean, this is a movie that I used to grow up with as a kid. It'd always be on TV. You'd always see it. And so we watched Aliens, turned the sound up, darkened the room. It was at night, and I think Newt was in trouble near the end of the film.
Yeah.
And she just took herself off. She was just like, I'm done. That's it. Took herself off to bed. She was like, I could not watch that anymore. I loved it, but that was just too much for me. And I was like, respect. That's cool. All right. We can watch it during the daytime with the sound turned down, and you can finish the story. So you've got closure. And she was completely happy with that.
Don't show her the beginning of Alien 3, though.
No, not at all.
Poor Newt.
What a disappointment.
Poor Newt. All right, before we finally get into Euphoria, something Euphoria adjacent I do want to call out because we've been discussing it all this season, which is the finale of Margo's Got Money Trouble. We could just spend a couple minutes on it. If anybody who's kind of been waiting to watch this show, my wife is now about halfway through it, by the way. She binged a bunch of it now. She's just started with episode 1 and has been working her way through it. She's very much enjoying it so far. And I thought it was a great ending, very emotional. I don't know if this show needs a season 2, which it has been renewed for season 2, probably because it's been very successful. But I thought kind of unnecessary to have a season 2. But regardless, the one season of the show, I thought was very good, a very emotional ending. And again, just weird parallels. We have the giantess yet again here, and another motif that we have here, when she decides to have her big unveiling, let's say, at the end of the season. And yeah, what did you think of this Tunnel of Love that Bruce Springsteen's song doesn't hit the same anymore?
Yes. My wife said exactly the same thing. There does not need to be a second season. It was a perfect ending. She managed to get her Tunnel of Love out there, and hopefully she got the big subscribers, and she got the white whale. Who is the white whale? That's what I want to find out. The person giving her the big tips. Yeah, I love this show, and I'm glad there's a second season coming because I want to see more of these characters, specifically the Fanning girl. She's just so adorable. I thought the courtroom scene was a little bit cheesy.
Yes.
And I'm sure no family court anywhere operates like that. I don't know who the judge was, but he gave a great performance. But maybe family courts should operate like that. I thought it was effective, even though it was cheesy. It was super effective and emotional as well, I got to say. Maybe there was pollen in the air when I was watching it. But yeah, really fantastic series. I can't speak highly enough about it. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I was a big fan. This is one of my favorite shows of the year. I think it'll probably be, at worst, it'll be in my honorable mentions at the end of the year. And who knows, maybe it'll be my top 10. We'll all know when we get to the end of the year, but definitely in the conversation, I thought it was very well done.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Not as well done, I think. We'll have to see how it sticks to landing. But what did you think of this current episode of Euphoria? I was very happy that they killed off Nate. They could have done something with the Nate character, but I'm glad that we just don't have to spend this one scene like we do in every other episode. We don't have to waste our time on his character anymore. What do you think in general of this episode?
In general, I loved this episode. I thought it was absolutely thrilling. I thought it had at least 3 scenes which were just jaw-droppingly tense. I was fully on board in those scenes. There are twists and turns. I kind of almost lost my interest in how it all mixes together.
Right.
She opens the safe. There's all the IDs. All right, let's deal with that next week when we've got, I think, like a 96-minute episode. This one was pretty long.
This one was like an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, I guess it's an hour and 10 minutes with the extra stuff. But yeah, you touched on it. Next week, it is indeed longer than any Game of Thrones episode. It's an hour and 33 minutes long. So almost definitely, I think actually, since you're like, right, it's about the same length as Obsession. So there you go.
Yeah, amazing. But I just thought some of the filmmaking was some of the best of the series in this episode. And so tense. And yeah, I did feel disappointed for Maddy. I thought that was pretty tough on her, the stuff that she has to go through. But Nate, I loved his death scene. I loved it. Yeah. Fantastic. That rattlesnake going down ridiculous. I've never seen anything like that. Yeah, super cool. Great filmmaking, great cinematography. I think that's why I like this show. I'm kind of inclined to like the show more than other people because I just love the way that it's shot. But yeah, super fun. I really enjoyed watching it. Yeah,
it had some downs for me. I agree that the first compliment I'll pay it was a very long episode of TV. And sometimes when I watch like Your Friends and Neighbors, which normally goes to 50 something minutes long, I have to like take a break in the middle of it, or sometimes after like 20 minutes, because I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm falling asleep. I need to like walk around or do something else and then come back to the episode just because it's not that compelling. This was a really long episode of TV and I did not feel the length at all. I was totally engaged the whole way through. I was happy, by the way, first of all, I was like happy that they killed off Nate because I'm just so tired of him trying to make him fit into the story somewhere. But I did think that the execution of that sequence was actually pretty cool. Like you mentioned, the snake going down there. I think about the shape of the season. I feel it's like a lost opportunity to not do something interesting with him. He really had like no character development at all. He's completely one-dimensional, always a jerk. It's not like he redeemed himself in some way and then dies tragically or something. There was like nothing to his character. And they spent like a minute, 5 minutes a week, sometimes less than that, with him after the wedding, ever since the wedding episode. So I'm just glad that they got rid of him. But all of that was well executed, digging him up. Of course, we know what's going to happen when he comes out of the grave. The grotesque, his tongue sticking out, the snake still coiled up in his chest is pretty cool. So yeah, the filmmaking is always good. And of course, now we have this suspense building up for what's going to happen with Rue at this moment where she's like there with the safe. And of course, Maddy's got to be really careful about saying this type of stuff. She's saying something about the DEA. You can't say that to Alamo. I'm sorry. You can't say that.
Silly girl.
So, they've suspected him. Like Bishop's already called her out multiple times. And what's this guy's name? Wayne. Wayne is also called her out as a rat. So she's in trouble regardless. So, of course, that's what we have to wait to see next week is how will she get herself out of the situation? And even is it like out of the frying pan into the fire if she gets out of that situation, only to go back to Alamo. Of course, most importantly, in that end sequence is the revelation that what they have in the safe that Alamo wants back is all those driver's licenses, right? So those girls, he's been, what they say around the bonfire that they are Alamo's selling off those girls is probably true. That's probably what we're actually seeing, that she's involved with this guy who is literally, getting these girls plastic surgery and then selling them off to people, which is pretty grotesque.
Okay, so that's what they stole from the safe. They didn't steal money or drugs. Maybe they did steal drugs, but they stole these IDs. Is that right?
I mean, that's definitely where they came from. I don't know if there was money as well, and maybe the money disappeared, but they kept the driver's licenses in there, or that's the thing that Alamo actually wants back. And he's saying, like, we need that stuff back. And you're wondering, like, why doesn't he just like shoot up the place or something? I guess he wants the IDs. I guess that's what he wants. But I guess all that will become clearer next week. I'm a little confused, to be honest. But.
Yeah, same. I'm confused as well, but I didn't really think too hard on it. The poor old 3D key that they spent so long, it just didn't work.
God, I got to tell you though, when Faye's like picking up the things and they're jangling around and they're like, you've never done this before. Like when you were a kid and you were like sneaking into the house and you hold the rest of the keys when you're turning the key in the lock. Like no one's ever done this before. They're sitting there like their hands shaking, putting the key into the lock, like off of his keychain. I'm like, what are you girls doing? But of course, that's all to ratchet up. I'm sure everybody in America was like screaming at the screen that whole time. That's the whole point, shooting the scene that way. So.
Oh, it was so funny. So fun. The Faye just with her tiptoes on the floorboard, just as light as a feather, and Rue just thumps down with her Converse. It's just like, come on.
Oh, and the door swings open and slams. It's so crazy. And of course, it's like the exact opposite of like when you get suspense in a heist movie. They even give you the fact that like the compressor turns on and off. And, of course, like in most of these type heist movies, it's like you have to wait for the compressor to turn on. And then you can, and they're just haphazardly jingling keys and the compressor's turning on and off. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Alamo should have given her at least some basic training before she let us go in there and to do this job for him. Come on.
I do like Faye's character. She says a really cool quote near the end that's just like, people underestimate me, or they just treat me with no respect, or they just expect me to be pretty. I forget what she says, but she's like, I have agency too. I have wants and needs, and I want this money. Even though she walks down the hallway with her swastika tattoo poking out. I wasn't sure whether she was leading Rue to
yeah, it could be a setup, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I think she's a cool character who hasn't been served enough.
Well, now she's going to wake up Wayne, and we'll see how that all plays out in the next scene. I mean, Wayne wants to kill Rue. So,
totally.
I mean, I don't know how Rue gets out of that situation unless he grabs Faye and tries to, threaten her or something to, use her as a shield or something. We'll have to wait and see.
She seems to talk her way out of every situation. So
he does, but I mean, this is the type of situation. I mean, she really seems like she's at the end of the line here with Phil. I don't know what why like people ask that, like, why is she still around? It's like, I don't know why they keep her around at this point. Like, is she necessary to, like, if they're going to go across the border and get the drugs and bring them back, the fentanyl in the ambulance, do they need Rue? Like, I don't understand.
There's a lot I don't understand. She left her phone in the car of that other big guy who's got the sniper rifle. Where is he? I can't even remember if he came into it at all. Is he still waiting for next episode?
He might be. He might be nearby watching. Yeah, it's possible. Because I guess she got out of the car and she walked pretty far to get to, farther than I think he's able to snipe.
Yeah,
but he might be nearby. Like, he might be inching closer over the course of the night and be propped up outside. So if she can get outside, he can snipe them all.
And the DEA was hearing what was happening inside the ambulance as well. Was that correct?
They were hearing them in the ambulance. Oh, yes, because I don't know if it was in the ambulance. They were saying they have to be careful when they take the ambulance because there are civilians inside, the two girls. So, but that wasn't happening. I think they were listening to, I don't remember what conversation they were listening to, because she left the phone behind. Why wouldn't she bring her phone? See, the more you think about this, the worse it gets. Because you're like, why wouldn't she bring the phone with her into Laurie's house so that she could turn the phone on and be like, hey, like right now, she could have turned the phone on when Wayne wakes up and she can start talking to Wayne and negotiating, and the DEA would be listening.
Yeah. I thought that was a silly place to leave the phone, but
yeah. So all that, other than setting up the tension there pretty well, I did think that a lot of the logistics of the ending are just confusing. And I mean, I guess it's just to set up the situation, but still it seemed a little odd. A couple of things though I wanted to bring up before then, I want to touch on additionally, was what did you think? I was really hoping we'd see Bishop's backstory, and maybe we will still see that, right? But we get Ali's backstory, which I kind of liked seeing Ali in this, the before times, before he went clean, with Natasha Lyonne there as this prostitute or just hanger-on who facilitated his addictions. She was fun, but in general, I enjoyed it overall. I don't know if he needed a backstory though, considering how close to the end of the show we are.
I don't think we saw Bishop at all in any scene in that whole episode, which was a big disappointment. But I did enjoy seeing Ali back. Again, he's an actor that I first saw in Euphoria, and he's gone on to bigger and better things. So it was great to see him back as Ali. And I liked, I thought it was sweet. I enjoyed it. He's kind of, I'm not sure if there's religious iconography there, but he's the one that lives. He's the one that stays alive when all his sponsors, I'm not sure what the terminology is, are dropping off, right, especially during COVID, which is horrendous. So they obviously didn't get the Zoom meetings up fast enough, but right, there was a lot of names in that book that he'd written down of people that had just succumbed to a life of drugs and depression, which is just awful. So I think he's going to be is he going to be he's going to come back next week. He's going to be a bit of a savior for Rue. Is Rue going to survive, or is she going to be another name written in his book?
Exactly. And yeah, the whole COVID, of course, that was a big problem here. And I assume around the world that a lot of overdoses occurred. You can imagine being an addict and then suddenly being isolated and not having to go to your meetings, but not even go to your meetings, just not being able to socialize and not having that feedback loop. And of course, you're stuck indoors for too long and get into your worst habits, right? And that's no worse habit than that. And it was like, pretty well visualized that, kind of like this, what he had gone through. And you think, like you come out the other end of that and how it must have been, it really kind of like made him double down on his mission. And he wants to save Rue and he thinks he's convinced Rue not to go. And she's like, but my mom's in danger. She's probably right, by the way. She just disappeared. She doesn't know whether, he's like, we'll go get your mom tomorrow. They can protect the mom, but can they protect everybody else? As we know, Cassie and Maddy are now like in the Viper's nest, basically, and they're in the crosshairs here. And by the way, Rue or not, they potentially are in very serious danger now. They owe Alamo something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, Maddy's story is very interesting to me. I mean, she presented herself as an equal to Alamo, and he's made it pretty clear that she is not. And she's yet another one of his conquests that he gets to do whatever he wants to do with her. And I'm going to go back a few episodes ago when we're talking about Kitty Likes to Dance episode, that Kitty knows what the score is. She knows what it takes to get the job at the strip club. You got to sleep with the boss. But the way that it's presented with Maddy in the hot tub is really awful. And I'm almost walking back my opinion of what I said a few episodes ago about that, because the coercion and the power displacement that is there, it really is a very unfriendly and potentially criminal conversation and situation that happens between the boss and the protege or whatever Maddy is. And she really finds out straight away that she is not an equal, and she is now in debt to Alamo for $1 million when there was not even $1 million in the bag. But that's what it's going to cost her. And I think he said an extra 20% of all future earnings. So yeah, she's in big trouble.
Yeah. So it's going to, and of course, Cassie's the one who's going to be making those earnings, or maybe Maddy as well, depending on how things shake out. Yeah. And going back to the point of that Kitty Likes to Dance, I always had that discomfort with, like I think the show was thematically trying to say that there's like, there are different ways you're presenting how much agency you have, but doesn't mean that that's actually what's happening. And ironically, it made me think about Obsession when I was watching the show last night, because there's the idea that you could be presenting, for example, when Kitty is in the tub and she's just like, gleefully jumping into his lap, that she may just know how to perform that because she knows it's required. But that doesn't mean that that's what's happening inside, right? And I think is like that is and of course, we see it here. Maddy is presenting that awkwardness, but that's not to say that the other characters don't have those same feelings. They just don't present it that way, right? Which is kind of like that difference between the performance of something and the reality of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a quote from Angel who said something about you suffer for 1,000 days just for a good life or something, and this is just one of the things that you have to do if you're in this situation, which, is completely frightening.
Yeah. So then any speculation on, actually, before we get to speculation, a couple of things that happen in that Endgame that are interesting. So you have the whole setup of it. There's, by the way, that scene, this is another thing, Levinson loves Giallos, and there's a very famous scene. I think it's in Deep Red. It's in one of the famous Giallos from the 70s that someone gets shot through the eye hole in the door. And there's a phone ringing in the background, and then like the bullet goes through the head and takes the phone off the ringer as well. But it's basically they're hinting at it twice. They actually see him like putting the gun up to the eyepiece, and then we circle back to it again, which is very funny that they go back to the same scene again. It's like we already know Rue survived. We were already here earlier before we did the rewind, the time wise. Anyway, just a funny flourish. Just interesting that they showed the sequence twice for reasons I wasn't certain. But of course, at that time, Cassie's actually tied up inside. How does this guy think that this OnlyFans girl is going to raise $1 million? This is a pretty crazy suggestion they have for setting this up. You think he would be a little more realistic about this? And of course, if you just killed the guy, it's not really going to get you your money back either. But that seems outlandish. How do you think this girl's going to have $1 million?
Isn't that just, that's how you do it. You just join OnlyFans and all of a sudden you get $1 million.
You make $1 million. Some of these girls claim to make like $1 million month one or whatever. So maybe it's true.
Exactly. I just assume that's just what happens. Yeah. Well, Nate's obviously been doing fast talking. And I think the guy, the Armenian boss is just like, well, you're useless to me, Nate, but I'll try to believe you. And I'll try to believe that Cassie's the avenue where I'm going to get this $1 million back. But yeah, he's just pie in the sky stuff, really, isn't it? I
guess it doesn't matter, right? He's going to say, I'm going to have $1 million. I'm going to kill the guy. And then I don't think they intended to kill him, or they would have just killed him initially, but they didn't know the snake was going to get down there. And the idea would probably be like whatever she would come up with, let's say $100,000, then they can keep squeezing her because Nate, is not even paying them the bare minimum. He's like literally, he misses his payments every single week. So like, yeah, they know that at this point, like how much harder. I mean, they ready to cut his finger off. What else can they do? Not that I think it's not a good plan. I'm just saying that I'm not saying the guy's a good guy. I'm just saying that they know that Nate's not going to pay them at this point.
He's not, but he is 6'5". That's what he says he is.
That's right.
And they measured him. Yeah.
He wasn't lying about that, at least.
I did like how the hitman or the Nate's adversary, he just turns once his boss is dead.
Immediately, yes.
He turns. He's like, yeah, I'll help you guys, whatever you need.
Yeah, I thought that was the funniest part of the whole thing is that as soon as he's dead, even before he dies, he's like, well, he's definitely going to die, so I'll just put my gun down. And then afterwards, he's just like, hey, you want me to go help you dig him up? Let me tell you where he is.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, if I'm on the payroll, no problems, whatever you say.
Whatever. No one else can use the digger. Let's do it.
That's true. Where else is it going to work? This is a difficult hiring economy right now. He's not going to go to work at Starbucks. This is the best he can do.
By the way, it would have been nice to see Bishop in that scene somewhere. I know he wasn't needed because Alamo wanted to do it all himself, but come on, where was Bishop?
Oh, by the way, the guy who we thought was getting sawed into, getting the whole Scarface treatment a couple of last episode or 2 episodes ago by Bishop. No, it's not the guy because we were like, I couldn't place him. Like, that doesn't look like the guy. Like, who is that? I don't know who it is. Maybe someone out there can tell me. Email me if you know who that was. Need some introduction at gmail.com. Because the guy in the bathroom was about to be like chainsawed up. That wasn't the guy. This guy just got out of the hospital and he's got his colostomy bag with him.
Yeah. I assume now. I thought it was that guy too, but I figure it's the doorman or one of the doormen who let the guys in. That's my way of passing it.
That's a pretty good idea. Yeah, that they walk by. Yeah. And of course, that guy, the same guy, is now in the car driving a shotgun with, who's that other guy? I forget the other guy's name. So I don't know any with Laurie's, Nazi number 3, whatever he is.
Yeah, the long hair guy.
One.
But yeah, they don't look particularly convincing driving that ambulance, I must say. But the DA has told everyone, let them go through. Don't encounter these people. Just let them go through.
Well, they're on the Mexico side, right? So I guess they're going to wait for them. I mean, they're still on the way in, but I guess they're going to come back. But once they jump off the girls and pick up the drugs, then yeah, I mean, they can intercept them before they get back, unless they're bringing girls back with them, but they're probably not. Anyway, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. We'll see.
Yeah, so these are Alamo's and Maddy's best girls. They're the 2 girls, right? And they're getting a cosmetic surgery in Mexico to come back bigger and better to make more money on OnlyFans. But
it's not magic. Okay. It's not magic in the back of the car. It's
not.
It's Kitty. But I don't know who the other girl was. There's one of the other girls back there, but it wasn't magic. She didn't have her neck brace on.
Okay.
At least she didn't have her neck brace on. Sure.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm thoroughly confused now.
But regardless, they are heading down there to get Brazilian butt lifts, I believe. Or at least that's what Kitty's going to do.
I love Kitty, and she's eating fatty snacks too, just to help it all along.
Oh, and with that, of course, one other thing we could talk about here, which is, of course, again, at least the Nate problem's been resolved, but we still have the Jules problem here, which is completely ridiculous. And again, the show does not know what to do with her, unfortunately. But I guess we'll see it all pay off next week. I mean, we got at least one of the main players is now off the board, so at least we can focus a little bit more What did you make of this whole sequence when Rue? I got to tell you, I was very sympathetic to Lexi when she goes to talk to Lexi, and she is babbling and on and like talking. It seems like one non sequitur after another. She gets upset when she thinks that she's back on drugs again, which, I mean, everybody would think that. This person walks in, paranoid that the DEA is listening in on everything she says. She's seen a burning bush. Like, if this is like an acquaintance of yours, you're assuming they're either having a psychotic break or they're on drugs. If you have this conversation with them, and I was on Lexi's side. I'm like, can you shut up? She's got writing to do.
Yeah, no idea how you can write possibly a career-defining script with Rue babbling absolute BS in the background. Lexi didn't have a lot to do this week, but I feel like her script is going to become something maybe in the show next week if they can work that fast. Always love seeing Sharon Stone in her little cameos once a week. That's always fun. But yeah, you can't spread the DEA rumors to everybody, can you?
Crazy. I mean, Maddy, again, you keep your mouth shut. You're talking to a criminal. Even if Rue is not in bed with DEA, even if you just think she's babbling random shit, you don't say that to somebody who's tangentially or directly involved in the drug trade. They do want to hear DEA, and they'll rub somebody out just in case it's a problem. Just in case.
Yeah. It's not a far-fetched idea that this giant black cowboy who runs a strip club is also involved in the drug trade. Come on.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't think directly that the DEA is looking at him, I mean, the simple fact is, if you think somebody in your under your umbrella is working with the government and trying to like work a deal, like, you know, you're a criminal too. That doesn't work a deal. You might be collateral damage. Like, that person's got to go.
Well, that's right. Rue's been consistently trouble over the whole time that he's known her. And old Bishop just thinks she's bad luck.
And what did you make about that? I'm very confused as to how we're supposed to feel about Alamo in general, by the way, because we see him as, you know, he does this thing. He doesn't have to, but he does come and help Maddy out. He could be endangering his own life. He doesn't know if this guy's connected to the Armenian mob more broadly. He could be endangering himself. There's no reason. He even says it. Why am I getting involved in your stuff? He does say, I'm sweet on you, but I'm not going to do this for free. So he seems to be kind of sticking to principles. But more importantly, the way he's presented as the cowboy, right? He's got his belt that she says, thank you. He takes her out there. He's a marksman. Have gun will travel. It's like the whole, motif of the season. So he's the cowboy in this arrangement. That might just mean that cowboys or knights in general weren't always the noble vision that we assume of them. But it does seem to be painting him in like he is doing her a favor. Now, of course, he wants to get paid back, but he still is doing her a favor. He's putting his neck on the line for someone he barely knows, right? So I am curious to get to understand what the show's opinion is of him, because he also says to her that she needs to grow up and she needs to learn a lesson. But I don't think he's saying that to her in a derogatory way. He's kind of saying like it's time to put like childish things aside. So it does seem like he's still trying to be a mentor for her, even though he definitely is abusing her. I mean, as a matter of fact, when he's getting dressed after they're seen in the pool, the hot tub, and we don't even know exactly what happened in the hot tub, she's against that wall with all those heads. She's just another trophy on the wall, right? So there's definitely that perspective of it. But I don't think we're supposed to see him exclusively as a monster. But, I should say, the show's trying to show some complexity to him. Although, like we touched on already, if he really is selling these girls off, he is like a straight up devil, right?
He is, definitely, yes. And I don't have an answer for you why he would stick his neck out for Maddy, as you say, for someone he barely knows. He respects her business acumen, but just because he has sex with her in the spa or whatever, it doesn't mean that he can put his neck on the line for, as you say, this guy could be connected to a greater Armenian gang. You got no idea what blowback it is. Although he maybe he senses that this is just some loan shark guy. He's not connected, and but he has no way of knowing that. So yeah, it's a really good point that you made. The guy is the devil, but we love shows that try to portray flawed characters as in some sort of heroic way, which, yeah, as this cowboy with a golden gun, he certainly is presented that way at times.
Yeah, so I'm very curious. I don't know if this show's doing a good job of explaining itself or if it's all intentional, and hopefully they'll give us more direction next week. I do hope that they kind of land something more thematically rich than just like a big shootout, or if there is, it's just a big shootout as a payoff, that there's some expansion of the themes they've raised over the course of the season. There's plenty of room for it in the 1 hour and 30 something minute episode, sure. So let's hope for the best.
Well, if there is a big shootout, there's got to be a big shootout. I'm very confident that Levinson is going to portray it in such an incredibly cinematic way. So I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, how everything comes together, I don't have any predictions other than the fact that it's all gonna come together. All the characters are gonna come together, but I don't know how they're gonna shoehorn Jules in there or whether they're gonna give Rue a happy ending. There's still speculation this is not the final season of Euphoria, but who knows about that? I feel like
the final
Cassie's
season for me.
It's the final season for us. I feel like Cassie is the main character of this season, and she's doing. I mean, Sydney Sweeney's doing a hell of a job. So I feel like I'd like her to maybe stand on top of the pile and become somebody that she doesn't know who she is, doesn't know the person that she can become, and she finishes on top somehow. I think that could be pretty comedic. I don't want to see Rue die, but some people have got to die. One's not enough, is it? Maybe it is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And in a movie-length episode, there's a lot of space to do whatever you want. So it's going to be interesting. What about yourself? What predictions do you have?
I don't know. I mean, I want to see Bishop play into the Endgame somehow. Alamo's going to get shot. I think either Laurie and her Nazi friends, there's going to be some kind of back and forth. Maybe he dies in that way. I can't imagine they would not. I'm just thinking about like the morality of the show. I don't think that they would allow him to be killed by those dum-dums over at Laurie's house. But there could be some kind of like collateral where, he survives, he kills everybody in the compound, but then he bleeds out or something. But I'm curious to see how that all plays out. I do think he probably dies, is my guess. Maybe it's the DEA. Maybe, maybe he gets back to the club and then the DEA is there to, extricate Rue, let's say. Rue and Maddy and Cassie are all inside of there. And they, escape together. So that could be something. Maybe Bishop helps him escape and, he makes a moral decision there at the end. Maybe. This is all just speculating things. I honestly can't imagine how Jules ties into all of this. And one prediction I'm pretty confident about is that Lexi is going to write that storyline using Cassie, who very funny in this episode, by the way, gets kicked off the show. We can't have a sex worker on the show. Get rid of her. And of course, which is like makes these even worse. Not that she would have made $1 million off of that salary either, by the way. Like maybe in residuals in 10 years by having a guest starring role on this TV show. So even that would not have saved her bacon. But I mean, OnlyFans, if she needs $1 million fast, would at least probably get her the money faster. Although it still would take more than a week. But I think that Lexi probably will use all of this craziness to write a script into the soap opera that makes her the head writer or something like that.
Did you pick the TV executive was Brian Grazer talking to Sharon Stone there?
Oh, I didn't notice that. Well, interesting.
Yeah. I just saw his hair and I was like, is that Brian Grazer? And then I saw his name in the credits.
Yeah, he's that famously that hair, yeah. Which he still has. Ron Howard doesn't have his hair, but... But Brian Grazer still does. All right. Do you have a few minutes to talk about Obsession, or are you out of time?
Sure. No, let's do it.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
All right. Okay. We're going to talk about Obsession. We're going to spoil the whole thing. We probably won't spoil that immediately, but I got a bunch of things to talk about. Okay, I'm going to piggyback on things you said specifically, and we can go back and forth on how you feel about this. You made a criticism to kind of start things at the beginning. You made a criticism that which I agree with, by the way, in general, the way it's written, that the character is kind of undefined at the beginning. It's kind of like, who is this guy? Like, we're just supposed to just be sympathetic to him because he's just like kind of the nerdy kid, the quiet kid, and his cats just died. So we're just supposed to be sympathetic to him instantaneously, like knee jerk. But like you mentioned, the performance gets much more interesting once he's in this situation. But I don't know if this was done in the editing room or not, but I think this is very intentional. And if it wasn't, I think that the Curry Barker, the director and writer of this film, came around to something interesting, which is that because he's so ill-defined at the beginning of the film, it's like you can impose onto him anything you want. Like, do you empathize with him? Like, were you that type of kid, or are you that type of kid, considering how many young people are seeing this movie right now? Do you empathize with him? Are you a girl who was like, man, I was like stalked by one of these guys, right? So what do you impose on that? Do you think he's like the nerdy guy in the John Hughes movie that should win the girl over, the really sweet guy? Like, are you just imposing something on him based on other movies you've seen? And I think that's interesting because it kind of leaves him undefined, so that over the course of the film, for me, over the course of the film, he starts off as like not that villainous. He just made a mistake early on. But then as the film progresses, he becomes overtly the villain of the film. And I don't think if you had a lot of setup for him, like you know exactly what he's like, and you see him interacting with his grandma, and you have you write a lot of his narrative early on, I think he can't make that pivot convincingly. So then in a way, you just kind of impose onto him whatever you want. And then over the course of the film, your opinions of him might change. But I actually thought that kind of works, even though it's not on the page, but I think it's an interesting way to address that character.
That's interesting. I wonder if he's portrayed like that, whether that's how pathetic he was when he dropped the character off at her house, gives her a lift home. He's got a gift for her. He tells her she's got a gift. She's like, you. And he's so pathetic that I thought it was a little unbelievable, but maybe it's more of it's written by a young person. It's about a young relationship. Not relationship. It's about young people today, which I'm fairly... it's a long way from when I was that age. So I don't know if I'd be that pathetic in that situation, but it does work for his character. Yeah, there's so much to think about. I really enjoy when you said that they float these ideas but don't fully explore them, because it lets you think about them after the film has finished, which I think has a lot of merit to it, because I have been thinking about different parts of it, wanting more from the film, but actually I'm getting more out of it from discussions with other people and thinking about it myself. Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I was thinking about today too. I was just listening to a podcast where they were mostly positive about it, but it's funny because they had completely different criticisms about the film. And overall, they all said really positive things about it. And then they were going off and criticizing things that, for me, of course, is what I love about it, is having this reaction where I'm like, you guys are misunderstanding what's happening in the film, right? Because they're all saying, for example, what the film should have been about is actually about the indie Navarrete. And by the way, I don't think in either of our reviews, we said enough about this absolutely incredible performance this girl does. Like, incredible performance. This girl is going to be brilliant, a star. And
she's so good. Yeah, she's so good. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I mean, she reminds me of the girl in Smile 2 who came from nowhere and does such an incredible performance that actually makes the film so excellent. She's so good as Nikki at the start, where you understand how you could fall in love with her, and you can also understand how she can be your best friend. And then the way she evolves, she's almost a possession type film.
Yes.
And she plays that off so well. She's captivating. And maybe she's just so much better than the other lead that I was just like, it's really tough to kind of get on the level when she is just so doing such great work.
Yeah, and her performance is so incredible because she does something that really, this is the thing that haunted me the most. And in that podcast, the conversation, they were going back and forth saying that the film should have been much more about like her being trapped, like that the film doesn't drive home the point enough that she's like trapped inside of there, and that is the most intriguing. And by the way, I agree that is the most horrifying concept in the film, and it is not the central conceit, right? We are seeing the movie over and over again. It's from his point of view and how uncomfortable he is having this irrational girlfriend, right? And that's like the one negative take I've taken is from the film, is that like it's about this guy being this, that he's, he made this wish and it all went wrong. And I think that negates the fact, or that they overlooks the fact of the amazing performance she has. And I actually think this is an incredible, considering the guy who wrote this screenplay and the director, this Curry Barker character, that he is not a character, he's a person. I'm just, he that's who he is, that he is very much intuiting something about this generation, or maybe just about being in this age group, that of course, being the person he is seeing the world from that point of view of a young man. And yet it's not just this fantasy gone wrong, which it could very easily be, this monkey's paw type story. There's something really fascinating about the fact that he gives her that agency. Like there are moments, even at the beginning, when she suddenly like has feelings for him, and you see that the inner Nikki is not that far off from this version. She's like, what the hell's going on? And she's like, hold on, I'm sorry. You know what? Can we go back to your place? And it's like the obsessed Nikki and the natural Nikki is just like a twinge to the left, like just more into him, like not friend zoned him. That's all it is. And she's kind of like, whoa, this is weird. Why would I hook up with this guy? We find out later on she's hooking up with his friend, right? So like, be like, whoa, what am I doing? It's as if she's having an internal monologue, which is externalized. And at the beginning, it's just that. But over time, when the obsessive Nikki and that internal Nikki start going further and further in different directions, like she expresses that these two selves are going in opposite directions, and it is driving her insane. Like she literally is like cutting herself in public and stuff. It's as if the inner Nikki is like screaming out in some way. And like there's that moment when there's like the rom-com version of the film where it looks very sweet. Like when they're kind of all on the same page, she maybe inside is like kind of like, oh yeah, this might be working for me. But it's like as that goes on too long and she starts realizing she has no agency, she starts getting like her internal self, that other self of hers, is truly in hell, right? And that is extremely disturbing, but it's something you have to like you have to like come to that yourself. You have to imagine it, which I think is way more powerful than just having her say it out loud or something. So I don't think like with that criticism that I have heard, I think that the film is aware of it and intelligently gives us enough to do the work ourselves, is what I think.
That's a great point. That scene where she flips and she wants to come home with him, it's a really good way of thinking about it, that her character is fighting these desires and she doesn't understand why she wants to go home with him. She just wants to spend more time with him. And yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it. And that's a way that they could have escalated the film by having those two characters, Nikki and this demon, going further and further apart. That makes a lot of sense. But you talk about casting a film. I mean, you just cast her. She's just excellent. I mean, I don't know how a director can get a performance out of somebody like that unless it's just innate and they just do it. Yeah. So, we're definitely going to see more of her for sure.
And again, to compliment him, he was doing an interview that I heard, and there's a short film, which I've never watched, actually. I've watched his feature-length YouTube video, which is called Milk and Cereal like serial killer. If you guys want to look it up, you'll find his website, and you'll notice the best friend here is in all those videos as well. So they've been collaborators for a long time. He's also an actor, so he's popped up in a few things, but now it's primarily going to be a director, of course. But the interesting part about those shorter films is that there was a short film called The Chair, which I still have not watched, but apparently there's a female protagonist that sits in this chair, and whenever you sit in this chair, you have a completely different emotion. So it's like kind of exactly what we see Nikki do there? And apparently the original idea, he was approached to make The Chair into a feature-length film. And he says, well, actually, I have something else I wanted to do. But what he was talking about when they were asking him how he cast the film, he said that in his mind, just that image of someone like switching from like one emotion to the other erratically was very disturbing to him. So he kind of like built a film around that as being like scary scenes. But once again, what I think is so innate, like that he just kind of intuited in writing this material, is that it could just be like, I've had relationships like that where you're like, from moment to moment, you're like, I don't know if they're happy, if they're sad, if they're going to go off the rails. I don't know if they're being like really happy right now, but it's a performance, which I think is very key in this film, because he starts to doubt whether how much of this is real and how much of it is a performance, so that even if things are going well for him, he can't accept it. So I think that is, although we know it's not, but I'm saying that even in the moment, he can't even accept that it is, because that's what poisons the fantasy for him. So all of that is really fascinating. But the fact that like he was able to come up with this from just like that one visual, and then like psychologically building something around it, and then of course getting a performance, which is like, I think she's doing a lot of the heavy lifting to like modulate how that drift of the two Nikkis is over the course of the film is, and that's when you start getting scared, right? At first, it's like, isn't that funny? She's like, I don't want to do that. And then it's kind of funny, kind of scary when she's in the room, which goes, I don't want to go to sleep. I don't like the dreams I'm having, which is very disturbing when you hear that, right? And that's, again, where the real terror in this film, some of the scariest stuff that has stuck with me, is all what's happening inside of Nikki that we just have hints of. First of all, it's her in the corner of the room watching him, saying, I don't want to go to sleep because I don't like the dreams I have. And then it's when she's sleeping in bed and she is saying, like, I'm awake and the other Nikki is sleeping. Please kill me in my sleep. And he says, is it so bad for you to be with me? Which, again, at this point, he knows that this is unsustainable. He's well past the point where he wants this thing to continue. And yet he still gets offended. Like, he's still saying, why can't you accept this to the real Nikki? Which is such an incredible scene. Just that little moment of dialogue. Again, that he includes that in the film, when he could just make it like a jump scare type film. And then, of course, the other thing that I think no one talks about, which I think starts off funny and then gets so utterly disturbing. Nikki's a writer, so there's some aspect of people have said this is just her possessed by a demon, but I'm like, this is a version of Nikki. It's probably the version of Nikki she does not want to be, but this is a version of Nikki. And this Nikki actually is a creative writer, and that story that she reads is so utterly disturbing. Like, if you imagine like that she's in there still trying to be the Nikki she was before, and this is the story she writes, it is deeply disturbing.
That's amazing. You've made me really want to watch this movie again, ASAP. I mean, that's so villainous. So villainous. That line where he says that, why can't you just be, is it that bad? I mean, that's the stuff that is really frightening to me. And going back to that earlier, it's almost a montage of them having fun together, kissing, and then having that. I think the sex scene is part of that montage, or maybe
it's the end of it. Yeah.
Oh my God! And she's just looking off.
Yes.
Off. It's just. I've immediately thought of rape or sexual assault, but to understand that it probably is, because he knows that she shouldn't be into him. He's been completely friend zoned, and we all know if you've been friend zoned, you know it's never going to happen, and it's actually happening for him, but it's just all wrong, and he can't accept it for what it is. Yeah, so frightening.
I defend him a little bit. Maybe I'm defending him a little too much, but I defend him a little bit because in the fact that, come on, is he supposed to really believe? You could say he doesn't believe it at first when she's like, let's go back to your place, and she's like coming on to him. He's freaked out, right? He's like, wait a second, what's happening here, right? But so he's not even ready to get what he actually wants early on. But where I defend him is when things feel better, he just feels like, when the rom-com montage happens, he just thinks everything's going okay. And he doesn't know how she would be otherwise. So even when she does these weird behaviors, I'm like, maybe that's just how she is, right? And I mean, imagine that's you. Do you believe that this wooden stick is actually magical? I mean, I think he starts suspecting it pretty early on. But even if you suspected it, you wouldn't be like, it's definitely a supernatural wish that I cast. Like it seems pretty unlikely, right? So I rationalize that until things get pretty serious. I mean, when he calls customer service, which kind of talk about, right? That's when things gets very real at that moment. But again, an absolutely hilarious scene that just how laid back the guy is in customer support. But that's a hilarious scene, which then is very disturbing when it's like, oh, you want to listen? You want to talk to her, Nikki? You can talk to her right now. And she's like screaming in hell or something. Like, oh my God. Like, how disturbing is that?
So disturbing. It's such a great idea. And I'm sure there's going to be pushes for prequels or sequels that really dig into who that customer service representative is, where the office is, what it's all about. I mean, they're going to do this thing to death because it's just so successful. Yeah, super cool. I was going to say something about... No, lost it. But yeah, where is that guy working? Where is Nikki? She's supposed to be in the depths of hell, but also she exists in the body as well. I mean, it's super cool to wait. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The cat. Where is the cat? Because you say that she goes crazy pretty early on, as in the first night that they're together, she makes the cat shrine. And I was a bit off it on that. Like,
yes.
That's not hiding anything. I mean, and I know that after the cat shrine, there's the door completely taped up, which I don't know.
That's pretty. I mean, that's pretty far in. I think he starts getting really disturbed is when they're at dinner and he calls him out on her lying about her dad being sick, and she just stands up and starts screaming in the middle of the restaurant. Again, by the way, very triggering. If something like this happened to me in real life, so again, no supernatural wishes, by the way. They just happen normally. So I have more empathy maybe for this guy than most people do.
Oh, that's great, isn't it? When your partner just pretends there's no one around and has a very personal conversation with you at a loud voice. It's just like, oh, that's happened to me often as well.
Often? Oh God, hopefully not. So I do cut him some slack. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to bring up here, by the way, when I was watching this film, tell me if you had this read on it at all. The film begins at the very start with the cat overdosing and eating his pills. And when he puts his pills away, he has like hundreds of pills. We don't even know what pills he's on. Like it could be anti-anxiety and anti-depression and God knows what else he's on, right? But he's on this like slew of pills. And he's like, oh my God, how did the cat get into these pills? He probably just has pills uncorked around the house, right? So he seems to be a total mess. And the reason I mentioned that is there's a version of the story as I was watching it where I'm like, is the One Wish Willow even real? Is this all happening in his head? Like, is this actually a call to customer service to hell? Like, is this his feeling that now this girl actually is into him? And in his mind, it's like she must be in there. And like, she starts being erratic, like people can be in relationships. If they get obsessed, it becomes like a toxic dynamic, obviously. It's as if they're possessed by something, right? Because their mood has changed so much. Or at least maybe she always projected being the cool girl. Now, all of a sudden, she's not the cool girl anymore. So, she's lost her cool completely and she's trying to be her normal self. And he's kind of like, I don't know if I want this. And of course, that is now, making the dynamic toxic. So there's a reason. The reason I mentioned that is that there's like a reading of it that this is all kind of happening in his head until there's like, it's undeniable that something supernatural is going on. But for a big chunk of the film, I started thinking like it is possible that we're seeing like an unreliable narrator. And at any time, were you reading the film that way?
That's another cool idea. I wasn't, but I kind of want to now because that's super fun. I just assume that this generation of their ages they're all medicated. They've all got a bunch of pills lying around the house. They've all tried all the different types of anti-anxiety medication. It's just part of their life now. Yeah, poor old cat. I just don't know where the cat fits into it.
Yes.
It is to make us feel for him at the start. It makes sense. Then he kind of shares it with Nikki, but doesn't at the start. And then the whole cat lunch business, I thought was a bit much. I do enjoy, what did you think of the actual, so his other friend has been friend zoned by him almost.
Yes.
She has romantic inclinations towards him and he can't see that, which I think is fascinating too.
First of all, I love that character. And of course that's her purpose, to be like the John Hughes type movies. It's that she is that friend to that guy who doesn't see that she's in love with him, right? And then, of course, he never gave her a chance. He friend zoned her, like you said. And then all of a sudden, like when he's now supposedly got the relationship he wants, he's now having earnest interactions with her, being like, well, how did I not see this before, right? So it's, and by the way, that's a cliche in rom-coms, so you're definitely playing with that. But that whole scene is so great because, first of all, again, the way that the film is able to do this so perfectly, blending like this, like real tragedy, like it's like, oh, he really missed his chance. And now we know they can't be together, not only because we suspect she's going to die any moment, but also because like he can't, even if she doesn't, even if he just goes back home, there's no way that like obsessed Nikki will allow anything like that to happen, right? So we know that it's just tragic. She is there. They're reading his college acceptance. He doesn't read it until later on. It's like one of the most sad scenes in the whole entire film, and yet it is also one of the funniest because the way it's shot, where they keep cutting back to the shot of him with her, the way it's framed when she's going to be attacked. So you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for Nikki to come out, and they do it like 4 times, 5 times. They keep cutting to the same exact shot, so inevitably know it's going to happen. And so even though we know it's going to happen, when it happens, it's so over the top. It's so crazy. Oh, God. And of course, utterly tragic at the exact same time.
That's so true. They leave the space in the frame through the window to just wait for Nikki to run in and headbutt it and just, destroy this girl with such brutality.
And God, by the way, like,
full on.
You know how like so many times when you watch a horror film and like whatever, like someone gets slammed their face into the steering wheel or something, and you're like, that's not how that would be at all. To the credit of this guy, like, and he said this in that same interview I read, where he goes, he basically in his head when he's writing something or imagining it, he's just like, he's a horror fan. So he's just like, he's watched so many films where he goes, that's cheesy. I just don't want my version of it to be cheesy. So he just thinks that his skill, he said, is just having good taste for what he wants to see. Right. And to that point, it's like, how many times does like whatever in this exact same scene, like someone just like reaches through the windshield and smashes it with their hand or something. And that he has thought about the fact that no, Nikki comes with that cinder block to smash the window and then smash her head into the cinder block. I'm like, no, she came prepared.
Oh yeah, that was extremely effective. The face into the brick for sure. And it does plenty of damage to her. But then again, she sets her up as another little shrine or some kind of. Oh my God!
Like, yes, how disturbing was that? To see her in the apartment afterwards. And then she's like scarred herself where she has the tattoos. It's very disturbing stuff at the end of this movie.
Really is disturbing. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it goes too far for me or not, but those images will definitely last.
Yeah, I feel like the same way. I thought that some of the images at the very end were disturbing, where I kind of felt, if it wasn't that the film I thought was overall so well made, that it would have been like just shocking for shocking's the purpose of being shocking. But like I said, I felt that it was so intelligent across the board that I kind of cut it a lot of slack for that. We got to talk about the end. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, just not only was the friend portrayed sitting on a chair, just her face is just gone, but she's almost placed seductively as well, at half naked, which, I mean, it's just completely shocking. And yeah, it just serves as another one of. She was
completely naked. And for a moment, I thought that there was going to be I was like, if this becomes, sexual, I'm like, I might have to leave the movie theater, but at least it didn't happen. That didn't happen.
It was plenty. Yeah, it was plenty sexual enough, just the way that it was shown there. And poor old Bear's just looking at it going, oh my God, what is this served up to me?
And then we definitely have to talk about the ending of the film, which gives us 2 endings, both which would be pretty amazing, by the way, the one that they land on, but the one that they tease as well. But before then, what did you think about this? Is kind of a little bit of a misstep when he's like telling his friend, just wish for something, please, just wish that I had never made my wish. And his friend goes, I wish I had $1 billion. And then like this money just starts raining down on him. And he's like, it's real. And of course, he gets shot in the head for it. But that was kind of like a little like a hat on a hat at that point.
I thought it was a bit silly the way where did the money come from? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at least have some notifications on his phone or something that money's been deposited in his account. I don't know. I didn't get that visual joke. Yeah, like you.
Or at least he could like drown in the money. Literally couldn't like climb out of it. There would be some kind of irony to that or something.
And then he gets shot straight away when
he comes running. It's also such a dumb scene because of course he's a dummy, but it's kind of funny, but still it's just a cheap joke that he like runs in going like, it's real. I counted it. It's $1 billion. Like as if like you wouldn't know immediately when you snap the stick and make the wish. And then all of a sudden like piles of money start raining down. Doesn't matter if it's exactly $1 billion or not. This is probably real. You don't have to actually count the amounts to know that this was a real thing.
Classic. He's that type of person though.
Exactly. It's real. Oh, really? How'd you figure it out? Not when the money was raining down on you. It's when you counted it. That's when you knew it was real. And then of course the very end where he's like, he's been told already there's only one way out of this. He has to die, which of course, again, I don't want to make that choice either. Trying to figure out any other option to get this out, other than that, even if you've been told that this is the only way. And again, once again, I thought about him being an unreliable narrator, and maybe this could be a death. Going back to like, what's the part of the cat at the beginning? I mean, this is him coming full circle to that first scene, right? So was this all a way for him to come to that conclusion that he really just wants to kill himself, right? And it's very tragic if you read it that way. This is all kind of like a psychotic break that he's having, and that he's just going to go and kill himself at the end of the film. And then two amazing things happen, even if you want to read it that way, because maybe the film's all happening in his head or primarily happening in his head. That first, the obsessed Nikki makes a wish that he is as into her as she is into him. And of course, he is momentarily, which is pretty amazing. And again, that's the other thing that I don't buy. Like there's some people who make the argument that the obsessed Nikki is just some kind of demon or something. It's like, no, she wants him to be in love with her. Right. So that's what's fascinating about that wish that she makes. And then any idea that this is just like some kind of death dream that he's having, if you wanted to keep imposing that read that I had before, the second that he actually dies and then she snaps back into her own personality is pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, so cool to see the actual Nikki come back at that moment. And then the camera does some weird thing, goes upside down and focuses on the television, which I thought was odd. Is that going back into... I
didn't really like that.
Bear's perspective? Yeah, I couldn't work
maybe
that
that's true because he's laying down. Yeah, that's a good point. That might be what it is. Yeah, I didn't really love the last shot either. But the other thing that's amazing about this, of course, is that in some of these films, like whatever, traditionally in a horror film, it's like, you defeated the demon and the sun is rising and you're covered in dirt and blood. And you're like, have a beer, like, let's have a beer. Whoo. And, wow, that was rough. That was a rough night. But in this particular case, it's like a horrible ending for her anyway, right? Like she has the memories of all this. She has the memories of being trapped inside of there, of all the things she did as the obsessed Nikki. This guy killed himself in front of her. Like this woman is traumatized for the rest of her life. Like there's no happy ending here at all.
Maybe that's why I walked out of the cinema not super buzzed, but yeah, very thought-provoking film for sure.
So pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, fascinating to talk about obsession. I really like listening to your points of view and the way that my criticisms can sometimes be a positive in other people's views is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because you can read it in multiple ways. I understand the arguments that people have made, the negative arguments, so it's fast. I think it's part of what people are talking about. I think it's part of the reason it's so popular.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, looking forward to what this guy makes next. And if there will be a sequel or a prequel to Obsession, I'll be there for it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't delay you, but I'll text you afterwards. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Victor.
Have a good, great. Thanks for the conversation. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.